Welcome to the VIP area of DPW 2022 conference in Amsterdam. And I'm thrilled to sit here with Lubomila from Plan A. And I really like the name of your company because there is no Plan B, I assume.
Indeed, indeed. Also, when we were looking for the domain, once you search for Plan A, actually in Spanish, plana means flat land.
Oh.
So you see all these like green fields. So there's like a double meaning behind that. No Plan B, but also nature.
Yes, very good name. So your company, because you're the CEO as well, is all about decarbonizing businesses. So if a company wants to become more sustainable, where should they start?
It's a really big question that many companies ask themselves today. There's a lot of consideration because of the legislation that has been changing. The EU, the UK has been announcing one framework after the other. So a lot of companies are kind of thinking, where do I start? How do I go about this? What we usually see as the best starting point is really to do an assessment of where the company is at that particular moment. Many businesses have sustainable elements to their operations, to their existence, but the company as a whole is not sustainable. Once you do the status quo analysis, which could be qualitative but also quantitative by assessing the emissions, by looking into stakeholders and what they're doing within the organization, like employees, suppliers, there you start understanding, okay, this is my
Point of reference.
and this is where I need to start preparing the plan to take action to be able to improve after that.
Yeah, and who is the responsible person in a company then for sustainability?
So if you would have asked me this question 12 or 24 months ago, it would have been a mess of an answer because there was just so many people that were taking charge of this topic. Today, there's a lot more prominence of the role of the Chief Sustainability Officer. This is a person that usually even sits on the board of a company and is responsible for this environmental agenda, but also the compliance bit and also this decarbonization activity. Some organizations still have impact officer, impact lead, head of ESG, but Chief Sustainability Officer is the most common one.
So, what role does procurement play in reducing emissions then?
Procurement is actually one of the key pillars for sustainability and any kind of net zero target to be achieved. The reason for this is that this is the filtering point for an organization to decide which stakeholders it wants to engage with. Taking a step back, maybe to explain a concept that is important to the sustainability journey of a company, this is Scope 1, 2, and 3. These are the three levels of emissions that a company has. Scope 1, facilities and vehicles. Scope 2, purchase electricity, heating, cooling. And then Scope 3 is suppliers, tada, procurement, but also employee travel, investments, and so on. And of course, these elements change according to the industry. Procurement, because of these suppliers, is where you can establish practices that can allow for your Scope 3, which is usually the biggest chunk of emissions that you need to reduce, to align to certain standards, also to a certain target. It can also be the field from which innovation comes, because the organization can select new partners that contribute to this net zero journey. It is, as a whole, one of the most fundamental elements for a company to become sustainable.
Okay. And do you feel that companies or businesses feel more responsible for sustainability? Outside their company?
So legislation really changed a lot in the last 12 months, and this made a lot of companies start to think outside of the realm of their own boundaries. They don't only think about the emissions from their employees and from their offices, but really, what kind of suppliers do I choose? Are they sustainable? Are they aligned to ESG? And because of all these new reporting frameworks, they were kind of obliged to start thinking about this. I would say next year will be the big shift because some particular legislation comes in place, like the new standards for science-based targets, where you now need to include Scope 3, and you also need to explain how you reduce emissions, also within Scope 3. But the progress is in motion.
Okay. Do you think that will stimulate companies to become really sustainable, or and to prevent greenwashing?
Absolutely. A lot of the new legislation that is coming up now is particularly focused on setting the record straight on what is sustainable, what it isn't. Just over the last 2-3 weeks, there's been a few law cases across Europe where companies that claim something to be eco or sustainable are now going to court. So these are not precedents anymore. This is how the governments think, and I think this is also pushing companies to be a bit more cautious before making an announcement or making a statement, and also for them to become a lot more detailed when they set out these sustainability agendas.
You were mentioning that there were becoming new laws and rules to prevent companies from greenwashing, but what else can we do to prevent this greenwashing?
A key pillar is education. We still lack the full understanding on a citizen, employee, but also on a business decision maker level of what really sustainability is. And for this reason, if someone wants to tell us that they're sustainable and we're not able to understand if this is a fact or not, we still could be fooled into thinking that we're doing the right thing. When I say education, this means really establishing a common language around sustainability and also explaining what really this net zero agenda means for the transformation of the organization.
Yeah, sounds interesting. Do you, what are you planning to do at this conference? My last question would be, so what is this year important to you to gain from this conference?
This conference is really important for us to connect to the procurement world, because at the end of the day, there's no success in net zero for businesses if they don't involve their third parties. I've already met so many inspiring people, chief sustainability officers, people that are head of procurement in large corporates, mid-sized companies, and all of them are actively thinking about sustainability because they want to know how to align all these different stakeholders. So I hope I can gain a lot of different, not only inspirations, but also contacts that can allow me up until next year for us to come back and speak with results about some of these companies.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So I hope to speak to you next year again to see what came out of this conference. And I wish you a lot of success today. And thank you for the interview.
Thank you so much for having me.